especially like as a black man, I felt like I had to. I knew people who didn't have degrees and were doing fine. And so I still feel like there's a need for it, but I definitely think the way we think about it has to change a little bit.
It just feels like some of these kids right now are trying to figure out, is this gamble, I suppose, still worth it? So it's hard. I mean, if you pick something that you think for whatever reason is gonna have a return, then I would say go for it. But we are in uncertain times, my dude.
Hey, my name is Chris Browning.
And I'm Paco de Leon.
And welcome to Our 2 Cents, where we dive into the money topics that everyone is talking about. Paco, for our next topic, we gotta talk about this. Is college still worth the cost? Paco, these expenses are getting crazy. When we look at tuition costs, it's a lot. We went to the same college. We didn't know. We found this out recently that we were at the same school during the same years, and it was a lot more affordable back then. I think my whole degree was like $12,000 for 4 years. And that is not the case anymore. So for you, given what prices look like now, do you think it's still worth it?
I think it's really hard to try to convince a young person to spend that much money on something that no longer feels like a sure thing.
Yeah.
Listen, I know the statistics have up until now shown that folks who go and get a college degree have higher earnings over their lifetime. But, you know, what if we extrapolate even further out over the next 10, 15, 20 years? Is that still going to be the case?
Yeah.
And it just feels like some of these kids right now are trying to figure out, is this gamble, I suppose, still worth it? So it's hard. I mean, if you pick something that you think for whatever reason is going to have a return, then I would say go for it. But we are in uncertain times, my dude.
Yeah, you kind of don't know. I know so many people who either have kids who are older, who are just getting into college, or some other family members, like they're telling me about their kids, what's going on. And some of them have gone in as computer science majors, and now they're like almost done with their degree. And it's like, well, with AI, is that even going to be a real career anymore? Like, is that career field going to disappear? And you've just spent all this time and money getting into it. So I definitely get that feeling of like, it's so up in the air if your degree is going to be worth it. But I don't know. For me, I got to say, like, especially like as a black man, I felt like I had to.
Sure.
Just as like to be, taken seriously with some of these jobs I was going into, because I knew people who didn't have degrees and were doing fine, but also I knew that I was kind of getting judged sometimes a little bit harsher when I'm going to some of those same interviews. And so, especially with the pressure from my parents, I was like, I got to do this thing. And so I still feel like there's a need for it, but I definitely think the way we think about it has to change a little bit. And I think, especially for a lot of people, we don't have the benefit of just going in and doing like a major that's like our passion. You almost have to be strategic. Like, look, I'm going in here to get this degree, but for a field where I know this is going to have some type of potential income benefit to me, versus like, I love this topic and I want to study it and make this my life, which I wish we all could do. But the sad reality is, like, so many of us get in trouble because we go in, spend a lot of money on a degree that you don't have a lot of career prospects once you get out.
Sure.
And you're in a tough spot.
Yeah. Can we talk about alternatives?
Yeah, let's do that. What are some other options out there? If you're like, okay, I want to do something. I know I need to provide some other type of like continuing education or training. What would you go with that's not like a traditional 4-year university?
I feel like trades are on the up and up. Like, we're all, people are still going to need like their toilets fixed and their electricity fixed. I mean, I can't even phrase it correctly.
You got to go in there and patch up the electricity.
There you go. So like trades, I think, are on the up and up. And then as far as what you can do that's not going to college, which I still think would be as much work, if not more, is you can, try to figure out something else on your own, which, there's a lot of risk involved in trying to work for yourself. But I mean, you're an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur. It's like you really learn a lot when you can only eat what you kill.
Yeah, it's stressful at times. So I don't always jump to tell people to do it, because I'm like, I think about the times where I'm like, oh man, what's next? What am I going to be doing next? And you got to do a lot of planning. But I do like the idea of thinking outside of the box. And I wanted to touch more on the idea of the trades, like going to like a trade school, because I think they get slept on.
Yeah.
I think people don't think about the fact that there are these careers out here that don't require a college degree, but are in such high demand. And you can make a lot of money being a plumber, being an electrician. You got to watch out for some scams, though.
Sure.
I feel like the truck driver one going around a lot. I feel like that's like a big.
Whoa.
That career path, that road is, I feel like, has a lot of scammers in it. So you have to be careful with where you choose to get your education. But I like the idea of doing something like that, because a lot of people don't want to sit at a desk all day. And this gives you an option to have a well-paying career that gives you flexibility and gives you variety.
Yeah, you always have to think about like what will be in demand, right? Okay, so you think about the baby boomers are aging, they're going to need healthcare. So if you could do something in that where you're taking care of people, like kind of a long shot that robots are going to be walking around taking care of old people, you know, and like
Not yet.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one thing. It's like you really have to zoom out and think, okay, how's the population changing? What will always be in demand? And then start to make your decisions based on that. And I think things like infrastructures, people are always going to pay for that.
Exactly. And we're always in a situation where we need more housing, especially right now. And that's going to be a need for electricians, for plumbers, for people in construction. Although I know that's a little shaky right now, depending on what's going on. You have a lot of older homes that need repairs, that need that type of maintenance. I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but are there any good resources for people who want to like find a trade school and get into those things?
I have no of those resources off the top of my head. Sorry.
I didn't want to throw that at you. I wasn't sure. But I actually have seen more of these programs going back into schools. Because it used to be a thing in high schools where they had these like auto shop, these other like home repair, home like skills that you would need. And I would love to see that come back as more and more schools, because like it's great to have like STEM, have our math or science, because obviously we need those people. We need people learning those things. But we also need people who have these practical skills.
Right.
And there's so many people who don't want to do math and science, but would love to do something more hands-on, and to have that option available. I would love to see that offered in more situations.
Hearing you talk about this makes me realize that like in our adulthood so far, there's been like such a violent pendulum swing.
Yes.
Because I feel like when we were coming up, it was like, just do something on the internet, it's so cool. And like even like growing up with like immigrant parents, like the sign of success is that you could like go and dine out. And now those two things are different. It's like, well, you know, do something with your hands, do something practical, recession proof, you know. It's kind of, it feels old timey to be like, go be a electrician, you know, versus like a tech rock star or whatever. But then also one of the signs of like status to me now is like, instead of going out and, you know, I don't have time, I have to go out and, you know, dine out. It's like, well, could I roast a chicken and make sourdough at home? Like that's peak luxury. So it's just interesting to watch like the landscape change of like, you know, things that were considered one thing and fancy 20 years ago it's the opposite now. We're like going back to what our grandparents.
So you're talking about like how things are kind of changing, like these conversations that we're having about the way we think about, like you said, like the ability to cook your own meal is like a skill now, that before it was like, oh no, if you can go buy your own food and buy like have someone bring it to your door, now you're living. It's also the reason why we're having this debate about college, right? Like the way we talked about college, you know, 20 years ago is much different now, and I feel like people are having a different experience based off of the generation that you're part of. And I feel like baby boomers, like my parents are boomers, it was go to college. You have to do this. This is your only choice. You better do it. And then now I'm seeing like with like Gen Z, they're like, I don't know about this. It seems kind of like a scam. I went to college. I don't feel like things were going that great. I mean, it's kind of weird now that things are kind of like a circle, right? We've come back around to maybe where things were 40, 50 years ago and how people thought about careers.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I have these memories of like being a little girl looking up at my dad, and my dad like kind of quizzing me, you know, he's like, what are you going to do before you get married? And I'm like, go to college. Like that was very ingrained in my mind, and that was what you had to do. And the same thing that you said earlier, it's like you have to do that in order to be taken seriously. And I think there's just so many avenues to do that now. Like people who are creating content online and can demonstrate a journey, can show like I went from point A to point B. You can get a job from that, and that's not going to college, but it's kind of going to college. You're basically saying, hey, I showed up every day for 4 years to do this thing. Do you trust me to hire me? So one other option that I actually went, and one other path that I went down that is available to everyone, is community college. So you can, you know, go there for 2 years. It's relatively inexpensive compared to a 4-year college. You have time to kind of figure things out. And honestly, I love the teachers in community college. I feel like they really cared about me. So that's definitely a stepping stone that can help ease the burden of the cost of college. And Chris, I think that's where there's probably some of the trade programs. Yeah,
exactly. You kind of get a little bit of both going there. Like if you want to figure out what you're doing, because I have a friend, he went to community college first because he was like, I don't want to pay all this money and I'm still trying to figure it out. Like you said, and why pay all that money just to take the same classes that you can get at a community college, oftentimes taught by the same professors. They teach at both locations. And like you said, you get exposure to other programs. They have so many other trade programs there. They even have like cooking classes. If you want to do something like that, they have like, I've seen auto repair shops. I've seen things for electricians and plumbers, all the things we were talking about. and it's at a much more affordable price. It's not free. Some places it is. Like, for example, I know San Francisco for residents, community college is free there. So there are locations where you can get free community college, but also it's still, even if you pay for it out of pocket, it's so much cheaper than going to like a 4-year university, especially a private 4-year university.
Totally. Hearing you say that the same professors teach at the community college as the 4-year college makes me think that community college is like the generic brand.
It is. It's a story. Okay, that sounds kind of bad. Like,
No,
not in
there's
the bad
wrong
way.
with generic.
In the best way. I buy
Yeah.
generic stuff all the
Yeah.
time. But you know, it's like no name.
Kirkland. It's all good.
Kirkland. There we go.
Yeah.
I like Kirkland. I want to say no name.
Yeah.
It's Kirkland College. It's not an insult. This sounds like it's an insult, but it's not, because I love buying Kirkland brand stuff.
Exactly.
Hey, so thanks for joining us here on Our 2 Cents.
And don't forget to hit us up in the comments with your 2 cents.
Yeah, and also leave us a like and make sure you're subscribed to the channel.